Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're taking a truly fascinating, deeply complex text and breaking it all down so you can easily grasp the core concepts. We're looking at a translated document from the lecture records of Shufeng, and it's called 3 Steps to Become a Celestial Being. Now, what's so absolutely striking about this source material is that it's not just some vague, abstract philosophy. Nope, it's actually written as a literal, step-by-step instruction manual for spiritual ascension. The author lays out a highly structured roadmap that's specifically designed to take us from a standard, everyday human existence all the way to an elevated divine state.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Have you become a celestial being? The author hits us with this question right out of the gate, and honestly, it sets the perfect stage for everything we're about to cover. Because by the end of this explainer, you're going to know exactly how this text defines a celestial, and you'll actually be able to answer that provocative question for yourself based entirely on this specific theological framework. To get there, we'll follow a clear path. First, the ultimate spiritual goal. Then, we'll walk through Step 1, clearing the mind. Step 2, carefree pleasure. And Step 3, the super celestial. Finally, we'll wrap things up with a diagnostic checklist, mortal or celestial.
Part 1. The ultimate spiritual goal.
Before we can even start taking those steps, we really need to know exactly where this staircase is leading us, right? Well, the source text outlines this incredibly structured universe, and the path to ascension means navigating some very distinct realms of existence. The journey itself is described as a triple jump. It's kind of like a giant cosmic hopscotch. You start right here in the mortal world. The first jump takes you up to the 1,000-year world. The second jump elevates you to the 10,000-year world. And then that third and final jump, that lands you on what the author calls the Celestial Islands continent. This final destination is the ultimate realm of the super celestial being. So it's this progressive expansion of consciousness, moving step by step away from our standard human limitations. Now, the absolutely crucial point here is that this framework completely bypasses the traditional concept of mortal reincarnation. The text is totally explicit on this. You aren't striving to come back as a better human or an eagle or someone really wealthy. The author writes, "We do not become other forms of mortal life, but rather celestial beings." So the end goal isn't a recycle. It's an entirely different, highly elevated form of existence altogether.
Part 2. Step 1. Clearing the mind.
So now that we know the ultimate destination, let's look at the actual instructions to get there. This first actionable phase of the manual is all about attaining the standard of that 1,000-year world we just talked about. And it kicks off with a massive emotional purge. The text literally demands that you completely abandon trouble, pain, sorrow, worry, and fear. Notice that it doesn't say you just manage them. You have to abandon them completely. In their place, you've got to actively embrace living a happy, joyous, free, and blessed life. According to the author, the exact moment you hit this standard and permanently ditch those negative emotions, boom, you have officially become a celestial being of the 1,000-year world.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how the author views human struggle. The text uses a really vivid, deeply relatable metaphor here. It describes those negative emotions, the annoyance, the pain, the fear, as the weeds of one's soul garden. It claims that these weeds stem purely from the imperfection of our consciousness. So the idea is, if you can perfect your consciousness and yank out all those emotional weeds, your soul garden becomes totally clear, and you pass Step 1.
Part 3. Step 2. Carefree pleasure.
Let's see how this builds into our next phase. If Step 1 was all about pulling out those emotional weeds, Step 2 gets a little more philosophical. This is the big jump to the 10,000-year world, and it requires letting go of some seriously, deeply ingrained human habits. The core requirement here is having a mind that does not abide in form. So what does that actually mean in the context of this source? Well, it means your mind just cannot be rigid. You have to follow predestined relationships seamlessly, follow your destiny effortlessly, and just be completely carefree. Plus, the text makes this super interesting distinction between joy, which is what you achieve back in Step 1, and a sustained condition of pleasure, which is the true hallmark of this second level. You are maintaining a constant, unbroken baseline of pleasure, totally unbothered by whatever changing circumstances life throws at you.
But of course, the author totally acknowledges that this is not an easy task, because we are all carrying around some really heavy baggage. Worldly social conditioning creates all these rigid rules in our heads, and things like desires, pursuits, and persistence, things that we normally view as positive ambition in the mortal world, are actually seen as major roadblocks here. The text explains that these worldly habits keep the mind bound to form and create internal conflict. So to hit that 10,000-year world status, you have to expand your internal nature until you are completely free of all these worldly constraints.
Part 4. Step 3. The Super Celestial.
This final jump brings us to the Supreme Realm. That's the Celestial Islands continent we talked about earlier. And it's right here that the manual's claims become truly fantastical, totally transcending everyday human experience. The author sets the philosophical stage for this final step with this beautiful metaphor. The universe is the dance of nature. At this ultimate level, your everyday actions aren't driven by ego or mortal desires anymore. Instead, you're simply an expression of your deepest nature. You are participating flawlessly in the dance of the universe, where literally every single action is just a natural, totally unforced physical and spiritual expression.
And as a result of participating in this cosmic dance, the supercelestials exhibit some very specific traits. First off, they are entirely unconstrained by emotions. They literally never experience conflict or dissatisfaction with anyone or anything, ever. They're supremely flexible and accommodating. The text also notes they have this incredibly high sensitivity, meaning they offer an instantaneous response to any stimuli, and they undergo infinite changes all while maintaining a state of continuous, unbothered bliss. It's just total, supreme harmony with existence itself.
Now, what's really interesting about this next point is the exact number mentioned in the text, 64. According to the source, once an individual has reached this final stage, once they are totally unconstrained by emotion and living in pure nature, they actually unlock 64 magical powers. Yes, literal supernatural abilities. And the text is crystal clear on this. These powers absolutely do not appear after step 1 or step 2. There's no way you can access them while you still have worldly desires or rigid thinking. Only those who finally reach this supreme realm can self-refine and actually possess these 64 supernatural abilities.
Part 5. Mortal or Celestial.
So, we've covered the ultimate goal and the 3 steps. But the author doesn't just leave this as some abstract theory. They provide a rapid-fire diagnostic test so you can evaluate exactly where you stand right this very second. Looking at the core traits of a mortal versus a celestial, the difference is incredibly stark. If you have any troubles, pain, sorrow, worry, or fear, you are a mortal. If your mind is bothered by literally anything, or if it clings to a specific form, yep, you're a mortal. To be classified as a celestial at even the base level, you must be, without a single exception, always happy, always joyous, and always free. Even the tiniest hint of anxiety keeps you firmly categorized as a mortal.
And this comparison just keeps going diving even deeper into the constraints of the mind. Ask yourself, do you have desires? Do you pursue goals? Do you have persistence in your mind? According to the text, if you answered yes to any of that, you are a mortal. If you can't totally rid yourself of physical and temporal constraints, you remain completely human. The absolute total dichotomy here is really striking, isn't it? The celestial state is defined by an absolute, unbroken continuum. You are always pleasant, always feeling bliss. Literally anything less is considered mortal.
As the author notes in the closing of the source text, the theory and the roadmap are entirely clear. Now, obviously, completely abandoning human emotion, ditching all worldly desire, and wiping out mental rigidity is a massive, incredibly difficult undertaking. But the formula itself? It's straightforward. The text asserts with absolute certainty, if you follow these exact steps precisely, you will undoubtedly become a celestial being.
And that brings us right back to the provocative challenge the author leaves us with. Becoming a celestial or Buddha is simple in theory, but can you do it? It's such a fascinating document because it takes this totally overwhelming concept of spiritual ascension and distills it down into an uncompromising 3-step checklist. It really forces you to look at your own soul garden, your own desires, and your own mental rigidity. The path to the Celestial Islands continent is mapped out right in front of us. The only question remaining is, are you ready to take that first step?